So, we are doing a new sourdough recipe. This is only the third time I made sourdough, but I've been keeping this starter alive for a little over 6 months, I think. I think I started it in end of January, beginning of February. We're going to go ahead and start out with 50 grams of my starter. I have my kitchen scale in my bowl. We're going to do 50 grams of this. Doesn't seem like very much. It says 50 to 100. Let's go ahead and do 100. See what happens. Why not? And then actually what I'm going to do, because in the 6 months that I've been doing this starter, this has slowly been getting more and more dried flour on it. So I have also set out another clean jar so I can transfer the rest of my starter into there and give this wide mouth jar a little break and a little cleaning. Okay, so to this 100 grams of starter, add 375 grams of warm water. So I have my water in the microwave. Just gonna warm it up a little bit. Let's start with 30 seconds, see what happens. Probably shouldn't be doing that, I'll get shut down for singing an actual song. Alright, and we have got warm water. Okay, we want 375 grams of this. I'm going to use a smaller vessel to measure that out because I don't want to add too much. Alright, whisk that together. And then we are going to do 500 grams of bread flour, which I have a brand new bag because I was going to do this morning and I looked in my pantry and I didn't have any bread flour and I panicked because I've been doing my starter with non-purpose or all-purpose flour. 500 grams, $4.92, 500. 9 to 12 grams of salt. So I'm going to clear that. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter if I clear it out because 500 plus 9 is 509, obviously. Sorry, that was stupid to say. Like I said, I'm nervous, so I'm going to make some stupid comments. But that's okay. Seems like a lot of salt. This seems like a ton of salt. I'm going to have some salty bread. It says 9 to 12 grams. I felt like it was a lot, so I stopped at 10. Now, we can move this out of the way because we're done weighing stuff. And we're just going to start working on our dough. And once it gets thick enough, you start using your hands until all the flour is just combined. This dough seems very wet. So we are going to cover with a damp towel and let rest for 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, we're gonna go start dinner. But first I'm gonna go get all this dough off my hands. Don't mind my stained towel, I promise it is clean. I'm gonna flour my hands a little bit, just so the dough doesn't stick. So, start at 12 o'clock, pull up, stretch, fold into the middle, quarter turn. This is the 4th time we've done this. We've done it every 30 minutes. So after you finish doing your dough, you let it rest 30 minutes and then you start the stretch and folds. And you do it every 30 minutes for 2 hours, so you should do 4 folds. You can do an extra one if you want to. Okay, you don't want to do too much kneading right here, but you do want to shape it a little bit. So you want to do is turn and pull with less flour than I have here because that's not giving me what I need. So I'm going to turn it and then pull it towards you, and it's going to almost roll and kind of fold in on itself. And you pull it back towards you, and then it makes this tight ball. So for this rise, you want to do this bottom side up. We're going to put it in here. I'm going to re-dampen the towel because it's mostly dry. You cover it and you leave it for 8 to 10 hours. It is 9:30, so 10 hours will be tomorrow, where we will move on from there. All we're doing today is shaping. We have left this to rise overnight, and it has more like quadrupled in size. Lightly flour our surface. I wish I had one of those shaker things, it would make it easier. Surface is lightly floured. I'm going to gently coax this out of there. There we go. Okay. And we're going to do a little bit of shaping. So, like we did yesterday with the fold and turns, we're going to do something very similar today. So we're going to do fold, stretch, and fold to the center, and turn. Stretch, fold to the center, and turn. Stretch, fold to the center, and turn. Stretch, fold to the center, and turn. And then we're going to do that push and pull thing like I did yesterday. So push and then pull back towards you. So as you're pulling it towards you, it kind of tightens the top of the dough here. Do that a few times. This side up. You always want the seam side up when you're resting. So we are going to leave this to rest for 30 minutes. And then we're going to come back and do the same process again. All right. Basket is proofed. We're going to do one more set of stretch and folds. The dough is getting really soft at this point. And 4. Okay, and then we're going to do the push and pull again. So when you push, you want to kind of turn it 1/4 of the way and then pull it back towards you. Turn it 1/4 of the way and pull it back towards you. And do that a couple times. Get some flour on my hands because it's actually sticking pretty well. Okay, push and pull. Move it back to the center, push. It's still too sticky. Okay, so you want to get it as tight as possible. I'm going to do a little dusting on the bread itself, see if that helps. Okay. And then once you get it as close to a perfect ball as possible, you take it into your proofing basket, seam side up, cover it. You put the damp towel back over it just in case. And it's going to do its final rise in the fridge for 24 hours. All right, guys, I'll see you around the same time tomorrow. Happy Labor Day. All right, we are finishing out the bread. So the recipe I have says to set your oven to 550 degrees. My oven only goes to 500. So I have put my cold Dutch oven into the cold oven and preheated it to as high as it would go, which is 500. So we're going to go ahead and pull that out. Whew. Oh, that's hot. Hot, hot, hot. Here's our dough. You want to pull off some parchment paper, enough to fit down inside of your pan. There. Because then you can use this to lift your bread out of it later. That was just to kind of mold it a little bit. We're going to put this on top of this now. Lift it out of your proofing pan. And that's why you flour your proofing thing. Pick it up and drop it straight into your hot cast iron Dutch oven. Then we are going to pull out our little scoring thing. You want to score the top of your bread to help it release the gases. So we are going to do, let's do an X. Why not? With a razor blade. And we're gonna tear it up apparently. There we go. Okay. You are going to put the lid on. Drop your temperature on your oven down to 450. And place your bread back in the oven. I guess not back in the oven, just in the oven for the first time. Okay, you're going to set the timer for 30 minutes. Set timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Counting down.
And then after that 30 minutes, you're going to remove the lid, lower the temperature to 400, and cook for another 10 to 15 minutes to get a better crust on. Down to 400. So it's 550 if your oven goes that high, then 450, now down to 400. Ow! And don't burn the shit out of your arm. Lid comes off if you want to take a zoom in. I really did burn my arm. And now we want just a little bit more color on top, so we're going to put it back in for another 10 to 15 minutes just to get that color on top a little darker. And then we'll take it out, let it come to room temperature, and then I will see you back when it's ready to slice so you can see what the inside crumb looks like. And then we'll have a taste. So the bread has come out of the oven, got put on a cooling rack, is nice and cool. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about a couple things that you want to look for in a finished bread. There's a bird on the bird feeder. I'm sorry. Alright, so you want your bread to be hollow when you tap on the bottom of it. Sounds hollow. You want a nice crunch when you squeeze it a little bit. Hoping you can see that, hear that, the microphone. And those are the two main aspects what you want to look for in a finished dough, but mostly that hollow sound is what makes you know that the dough is fully cooked on the inside. I'm going to tell you a little bit before I cut this open about why I decided to do this 3-day method instead of the 1-day method. So when I've done the 3-day method, it still goes through the 2 rises. The bulk fermentation is the first rise and the proof is the second rise. But my bread always came out feeling a little bit dense. Supposedly, what I'm hoping to see when I open this bread up is a more airy loaf with more bubbles and stuff inside that was missing when I would do the quicker rises and the shorter time of the bulk rise and the proof. That's just why I decided to do a 3-day process on a long weekend. So we're going to go ahead and cut this open and see what we got. I don't have a bread knife, so this makes it a little bit more complicated. Okay. So the bubbles on here are bigger than what is normal. The inside of the dough does feel still a little doughy, so I think it could have gone just a little longer, but it could also be because my dough seems so wet. It still feels, it doesn't feel doughy, it feels sticky, but it does have a good bounce back, which means it is fully cooked. If you look, when I push down, it bounces right back. So it's not really doughy, it's just got a stickiness to it. So we're going to cut some slices, butter it up, and eat it. The spring is really good because I am accidentally squishing the bread as I'm cutting it, and it is bouncing right back. So that has a lot to do with the gluten that we put into it. By doing all those series of stretch and folds, we develop the gluten more, giving it more of that bounce back. Another goal that I had with doing the longer bulk fermentation and the longer proof was to develop more of a more sour taste. So the bread that you buy at the grocery store is a lot more sour than homemade bread that I have noticed in the past. But I'm sure that's because they add fake flavorings and artificial stuff to it to give it that more sour flavor. So I'm hoping to accomplish with the longer bulk fermentation and the longer proof in the fridge to develop that sourness more. But we're about to find out. It's still not as sour as you find in an in-store bread, but I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to accomplish that. But it is very good. It's very light, very airy, and it is more sour than the doughs I have made in the past. So overall, I'm happy. I think it does still need a little bit of tweaking with the recipe because I do think it is still too wet. While it is fully cooked, it's sticky, which is weird to me. And I felt like the whole time that my dough was too sticky. So maybe next time we're going to make some adjustments and try again. But it could be with the environment of my kitchen as to why it didn't quite work out perfectly for me. Because everybody's environment is different. It could be how long I let my sourdough sit, my starter sit before using it. There's a couple different things that could make my loaf turn out different than the guy who did the recipe. Environment is the big one. So it could be that my kitchen, my house, and all that kind of stuff is just more humid than his is at home. But otherwise, it's very good. And if you want to start your own sourdough, I will post a link down below on how to start your own starter. It's very easy as long as you remember to actually feed it. So, thank you guys for sticking with me for 3 days. See y'all later.